Hey there guys, I'm Kieran and you're listening to another episode of Kieran's Movie Space, the podcast where I discuss the latest movies, TV shows and pretty much anything else that I want to talk about. In this episode, I'm going to be reviewing the new animated film Next Gen, which you can watch right now on Netflix. I just watched this last night, not really knowing much about it, other than that it has a really impressive voice cast. You've got John Krasinski, Constance Wu, Michael Pena, Jason Sudeikis, and that's just to name a few. And this film basically revolves around this young girl called May, who lives in a time where there are robots everywhere. Humans are pretty much relying on robots for everything, but this girl hates robots, at least until she discovers a top secret machine that she slowly starts to befriend, and they go on this insane robot killing adventure together. So let's get straight into this review, and the first thing that I want to talk about is the animation, because this film is visually one of the most beautiful animated movies that I've ever seen. I'm not exactly sure why, but when I saw that this was a Netflix film, I really didn't expect much from the animation. Maybe because it wasn't going to be on the big screen or something like that, but as soon as I hit play, I realized how wrong I was, because the animation here is really cool, and I'd say that it's up there with what both DreamWorks and Pixar have been creating recently. Everything in this film just jumps out of the screen. The animation is incredible, the character design is stylish and unique, the colours are stunning, and when you get to the third act, there's a pretty big action sequence which is just awesome to watch. Everything from the animation to the cinematography in that sequence was some of the best that I've ever seen in an animated film. Some scenes even looked like they were from a live action movie, and I just can't give enough credit to the people that worked on the animation. It really does look awesome. And the story's great as well. This isn't one of those animated films that hides its crappy story under great animation. This is a really fun and a really well-told action-adventure movie with characters that I found to be relatable and engaging. John Krasinski was the perfect choice for Project 77. He brings such a great childlike quality to the robot and a lot of personality and warmth as well. That character could have been kind of one-note or boring or even cheesy, especially because there are similar characters out there, but Krasinski's voice performance just made you instantly fall in love with the character, and it was just such great casting. Charlene Yi is the young actress who brings May to life, and she does a fantastic job. There's a lot of hidden anger in that character, and Lee, along with the animation, does a great job of putting the anger on display. More than anything else though, it's the relationship between May and Project 77 that makes this story worth watching. The film takes a lot of time to show how these two characters need each other to move forward, and there's never a point in the film where one of the characters isn't learning from the other. Project 77 is obviously learning how to become more human from May, and then May's learning how to be less angry from Project 77. I will say that the relationship feels familiar. It's very similar to what we've seen between Hiccup and Toothless, or even Hero and Baymax. But just because it's familiar doesn't mean that it's any less effective or any less enjoyable. I'm a big fan of animated movies, but the one thing that usually disappoints me about a lot of them is the villains, especially in some of the Pixar movies, just because I don't think all of the films do enough to display the villains' motives, and they don't really need to, just because kids don't really give a crap. But that's just an issue that I have with some animated movies, but I actually found that I really enjoyed the villain in this film. Jason Sudeikis voices the main bad guy in Next Gen, and he's this kind of dodgy businessman that wants to use robots to restructure the world and end humanity. There were a few small issues I had with the villain. There's a twist towards the end that wasn't really surprising, but overall I think they did a great job of creating a villain that will both scare kids and give the adults in the room entertainment as well. And that leads me on to my next point, because another thing that I really enjoyed about this movie was how well it worked as a film for kids, but also as a film that adults of any age could sit down and enjoy. There are certainly elements of this movie that are just meant for kids, which was obviously expected, but I was surprised by the number of moments, themes, and characters that are specifically there to interest adults. There's a specific storyline about memories and holding on to what's important that really got to me, and then obviously there's this deeper message about technology and addiction to technology that I thought was really well presented. It never felt like they were beating you over the head with a message or anything like that. I hate it when films do that, but this one was just a fun movie that had these important messages embedded within it. If you've listened to any of my other reviews, you'll know that I'm a big fan of movie scores, and I often find that animated movies have great scores. The How to Train Your Dragon score is probably my favourite of all time, and I'm really glad to say that Next Gen has a really great score. There's one scene in particular, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and it happens towards the end of the movie as Project 77 is battling with the villain, and usually in that kind of sequence you'd have this big explosive piece of music in the background, but instead they decided to go with this quite emotional and this powerful track, and it gave the scene this really epic feel. And this movie's just filled with moments like that where the score will come in and make an already good scene even better, which is what all good movie scores should do. The only issue I really have with Next Gen is that it's very, very similar to other animated movies, especially Big Hero 6. I mentioned this briefly already, but the core relationship between May and Project 77 is very similar to the bond that Baymax and Hero have. This isn't really a massive issue that I have with the movie, it's more of a nitpick, but I just thought I should let you know that you might get maybe 20 minutes into the film and things might start to feel a little bit familiar, especially as the two characters are beginning to build that relationship. To give this film a score out of 10, I'm going to go with an 8. This is a movie that I enjoyed a lot more than I thought I was gonna. It's a really beautiful and colourful film. The story's really fun, the characters are great, it has a great score, and like I said, it does a really good job of giving both adults and kids something to enjoy. Next Gen does enter familiar territory sometimes, but the original and the unique aspects of this film far outweigh the elements that were clearly taken from other animated movies. So that's what I thought of Next Gen. Have you seen the movie? If so, let me know what you thought in the comments section below. As usual, it would be awesome if you could hit the thumbs up or like buttons. And if you're listening on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe so that you never miss another episode. That's it for this review. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.